questions. L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. After 8 years, this Prime Minister has said that these are difficult times for politicians. He said at his conference on inflation in Charlottetown at the cabinet retreat that inflation has gone back down. But yesterday we found out that inflation is going back up. And in fact, the finance minister declared victory in the fight against inflation. But since that declaration of victory, inflation has risen by 43%, which forced the Bank of Canada to raise interest rates for Canadians who are the most in debt of any G7 citizens. Will the government finally bring down taxes and inflationary deficits so that we can bring down interest rates before we have a housing crisis and mortgage crisis? The Honourable Innovation Minister. Now, I'm sure that the opposition leader would like to hear the answer. So we will ask everyone to please calm down. It's all well and good to be excited, and I'm happy that everyone's excited, but we are now giving the floor to the Honourable Minister. Go ahead, Minister.
Allez-y.
I thank colleagues on both sides of this House for their enthusiasm. Now, Mr. Speaker, this summer we listened to Canadians. We met with them and we heard them. They told us 3 things, Mr. Speaker. First, they asked us to help them with the cost of groceries. Second, they said help us with housing. And the third thing that Canadians want, they did not tell us stop helping families, stop helping the vulnerable. They did not say that. That's not what they want, Mr. Speaker. Canadians who are tuning in, they know that this party will always be there for them, but they're starting to understand that the Conservative leader is not there for them and he's too risky for Canada. The Honourable Opposition Leader. Wow. The Liberals, for the first time, seem to be happy with the person leading them during question period. I congratulate the member for his new role. Another guy from Shawinigan might become Prime Minister. And I understand, even the Liberals want to sack the Prime Minister because the Prime Minister costs too much and he's not worth the cost. He's just not worth it. The Honourable Innovation Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader likes his big speeches, but Canadians told us very clearly that they need our government to help them. That's why we're here for them. We're helping with grocery costs, Mr. Speaker. We also called in major grocery heads this week. We are going to bring down GST for housing. We are going to take action to help Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are tired of hearing the Conservative leader's slogans. He takes too many risks. He's too risky and dangerous for Canada, but we are there for Canadians, and we always will be, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Opposition Leader.
Speaker, at his recent retreat in Charlottetown, the Prime Minister said that life is really tough for politicians. Today he's off for another trip to New York for 3 days to give a couple of speeches and burn a whole lot of fuel. At the same time as he raises carbon taxes on Canadians for the crime of driving to work and feeding their families. Yesterday, inflation was up and way up. It is accelerating. It is higher than in the States and in Japan, which could drive up interest rates. Will he balance the budget and axe the tax to bring inflation and interest rates down?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. 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 There we go. Shh. Okay, I realize it's Wednesday and everybody's excited and the emotions are running high, but we have to get through question period. Let's see if we can just calm down and hear the questions and the answers. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've been very clear that affordability is, of course, a top priority for this government. It is very clear that it is a huge concern on the minds of many, many, many Canadians. It is certainly, it has caused us to look at programs such as removing the GST from the construction of new rental units, provide money for home efficiency, the grocery rebate, and a range of other things. But I would say, Mr. Speaker, that it's also important that while we are addressing affordability, we do so in a manner that actually will allow us to also address the climate crisis. It is an existential threat to the future of our children. Shame on them for having no climate plan. On this side of the House, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do both.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, they're prepared to thunderously applaud anyone other than their own leader who stands up in the House of Commons. No wonder the Prime Minister says it's a really hard time to be a politician. And, you know, right now, speaking of hard times, he's off in New York for another 3 days, burning a lot of jet fuel while he applies a carbon tax that he wants to quadruple to 61 cents a litre on farmers, single parents, on struggling working class families who have to choose between eating and heating. Will the Prime Minister park the plane, end the high carbon hypocrisy, and axe the tax?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the Conservatives, our government actually has a plan to support Canadians during this time. We have, for example, the grocery rebate helping 11 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker, 4.2 million Canadians with the workers' benefit, over 6 million Canadians with indexing old age security. Mr. Speaker, what is their plan? That's right. They don't have one.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Our plan is to axe the tax and use technology, not taxes. It's really incredible that this high-flying, high-carbon hypocrite is jetting around the world at the expense of Canadian taxpayers at the same time as he raises fuel taxes on everyday Canadians. The NDP supports him 100% in this 61 cent a litre carbon tax that they want to impose. That and the inflationary deficits have driven inflation back up. Will this government finally end the inflationary taxes and deficits so that we can bring down rates before Canadians go bankrupt?
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
Mr. Speaker, over nearly 2 decades in Canadian politics, he hasn't seen a program that helps Canadians he doesn't want to cut. Over the course of my time in this chamber, I've watched him attack the programs that support my constituents, programs like employment insurance, programs like the Canada Pension Plan. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to put forward measures that are going to support Canadians during their time of need. He may dismiss them as big, fat government programs. I call them programs that put food on the table for families who live in my community.